The old coot here coming at you with another exciting video. Loving these Balchi 2-quart ice cream containers, gelato, or in my case, I'm lifting the lid on Granita. So in the previous video to this one, those little shorts, you saw how scoopable this Granita was. And it's not about the fact that it's scoopable like this. It's more about the fact of the texture, the actual smoothness, the creaminess, the silkiness of the gelato. Because most of the time when people make granita, which is like Italian ice or sherbet or sorbet, would be like, I guess, the English or American version of that. It usually comes out grainy, granular, icy. This is more smoother, more velvety. So how did we get to this point after I licked my ice cream scooper? You didn't see that. You didn't have to see that. Anyways, like I said, I'm loving these Balchi. This is the 2-quart ice cream container. They also come in 1 quarts. But 2-quart does it for me. I'll do another video review on this another time. But how did we get to that point of that beautiful ice cream or beautiful granita? So most important thing is to have yourself a good digital food scale. I know some people use measuring cups, which are totally fine. I mean, if you feel like you found a good accurate one, go for it. I have yet to find one that is accurate, that really gets a true reading of what I'm trying to measure. So I just like the digital scale. Things are always accurate, comes out better. What I do is I get a very thin, like either stainless steel or aluminum type bowl that I can pour my ingredients into one by one. Usually start with the dry stuff and then end with the wet stuff. But anyways, this one is made by Ozeri. This is the Pronto digital scale. I will put links down below in the description and also in the comments section, wherever that is down there. But anyways, how do we get the smoothness? So one trick I'll teach everybody is when you mix your sugar with water, or if you're using a non-glycemic index boosting sweetener, such as monk fruit or allulose, like I think this seems to be the new industry standard, especially for keto. Like there is no hit to your glycemic index with allulose, which is great. Monk fruit, I think, is the same. I don't think it hits your blood. I don't think it hits your blood sugar the same way that regular sugar does. In any case, whether you decide to use regular sugar or you decide to use a sweetener like allulose or monk fruit with allulose, I will put links down below in the description there for both of these, everything here. You do want to boil that with water for just like a second or two. Like just bring it up to a boil, shut off the heat, and that's what helps to incorporate the sugar or the sweetener with the water. What I like to use is an All-Clad 4-quart saucepan. This is like my workhorse because I make almost everything in here. But this is 4 quarts. So the good news is my recipe usually comes out to about just shy of 2 quarts. Let's say like 1 quart and 3/4. So this is plenty of room. You've got plenty of room in there. Also, the ice cream maker that I use, this is one of those old school ones where you have to put ice in there with the rock salt. We'll get to this in a second. This holds 4 quarts total. So when you have your overrun, which is, you basically want to get it to the consistency of like frozen yogurt, kind of soft serve ice cream kind of consistency. What it's doing is every pass, it's incorporating a little bit more air in there by, microscopic amounts. But the more you let it run, the more air gets incorporated, the more volume gets higher. So basically, if I put 2 quarts in here of liquid, right, my liquid granita mix, eventually it might go up to like 2 1/4 quarts or 2 1/2 quarts. And then at that point, I put it into the containers, right, the Balchi containers, and then freeze this for a couple hours, at least 3 hours, sometimes even overnight, just to get it like to that perfect consistency and smoothness. So let's get into this. So simple recipe, right? I do it by grams. I know that's kind of hard for people to understand. Like, what about cups? How many cups is that? That's why you get yourself a good food scale that measures grams. See that? If you want, you can convert to ounces. I'll let you do that on your own time. But anyways, you kind of get the idea here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to measure everything out in grams because it's easier to remember. It's a simpler formula. There are 1,000 grams of water. Does it matter what kind of water you use? No, but I like to use filtered water that I know that I've filtered, and I know exactly the process of what went into taking out, the harmful stuff. You could use bottled water. You could use water straight out of your sink. Makes no difference. What I wouldn't use distilled water per se. I don't know. I think you do want something in the water. Like you want some minerals in there to help, think of like little circles, right? And your ice cream is like held together. It's all of these, or your gelato or your granita is all held together with these little circles. And in between the circles are these little minerals that are kind of helping to break up a rock hard solid piece of ice. So having the minerals in there with either bottled water or filtered water is better than distilled water, if that makes sense. Anyways, 1,000 grams or 1 kilo of water. Then you want half that amount as sugar if you're using sugar. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 parts water, 1 part sugar. So if you want to adjust the recipe, if you want to do, let's say like 2,000 grams of water, you would put in 1,000 grams of sugar, right? 1,000 grams of water, 500 grams of sugar. Now here's where it gets interesting. If you're going to use allulose or monk fruit with allulose, it's a little bit different. You want to take away somewhere in the area of around 20%. So let's say you're going to use 1,000 grams of water. Instead of using 500 grams of sugar, you're going to use 400 grams of allulose or allulose with monk fruit. This just kind of gives it a distinct flavor. That monk fruit has a flavor to it. So it's not like pure sugar, but it does have a flavor to it. And I kind of like that flavor, and I like the benefits of monk fruit. So that's why I use the monk fruit with the allulose. If you want to use just straight allulose, that's totally fine. Like I said, just use 20% less the amount that you would have used if you were using sugar. So remember, 1,000 grams of water, 500 grams of sugar, or 400 grams of allulose. Does that make sense? You put your water in your 4-quart saucepan. You measure out your allulose, if you're using that, or your sugar. Put that in the bowl, measure that out. Go ahead and put that in the water. Bring this up to just boiling. So like little bubbles around the edge doesn't count as a boil. You want a nice rolling boil for about 3 seconds, let's say. Shut off your heat and just let it sit and chill out and hang out. It needs to come back down to room temperature. You do not want to speed up this process. I've seen so many people do videos where they throw this thing in a bucket of ice or something to try to cool it down faster. All you're doing is screwing up the smoothness. If you want the smoothness of the granita that I showed you at the beginning of this video, it needs to cool down to room temperature at room temperature temperatures, right? So just take it off the heat and just let it sit. It's probably going to be about half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour before it comes back down to room temperature. That's totally fine. Whatever it takes. Okay, at that point, what you want to do is you want to put in a pinch of salt. In this case, I use Himalayan pink salt. I just do like 2 or 3 grinds, just like 2 or 3 grinds. If you have like it already ground, and it's ground fine, let's say, sea salt, iodized salt, Celtic sea salt, regular Morton's table salt, whatever. Like I kind of use them all for different, like even if you want to use this stuff, that's fine. You just want like a little pinch. So we're not talking a quarter of a teaspoon. We're just talking like a little pinch. That little bit of salt also helps to contribute to the smoothness of the ice cream, or to the gelato, or to the granita. In this case, granita. But like I said, you just want it, just grab it in a little pinch, or like 3 turns set to fine on your salt grinder if you have that. So now your water and your sugar, or your water and your allulose are chilling out with a pinch of salt. At that point, it's time to start measuring out your granita flavoring. This time, the traditional, I use lemon juice. You can find different brands anywhere. What you don't want is lemonade. Lemonade has sugar added to it. You don't want to add lemon. You just want pure lemon juice. You could use the stuff like this is refrigerated, but you could use the stuff that's sold on the shelves. If it's lemon juice, comes from 10% juice or whatever it is, you could use whatever you want to as long as it's lemon juice. If you have lemons in season or you want to go ahead and spend the extra money to actually buy lemons and squeeze them out so that they're all squozen and ready to squeezy for your squeeziness, squeeze it to you because lemons right now are pretty expensive. So I just buy the juice. This stuff's pretty good, by the way. This brand, Honest to Goodness Freshness, Paracone Farms. This is just pure squozen lemons that made lemon juice. How much of this do you put in? So it's going to be about 25% of the amount of water. So water is the number one like multiplier, let's say. So if I had 1,000 grams of water, I'm going to put in 250 grams of the juice that I'm going to use. So if I'm using freshly squozen lemon juice, right? Not lemonade, lemon juice, it's 25%, right? Did I say that? 25% of the amount of water. 1,000 grams of water, 250 grams of lemon juice. When do you put this into the pot? You put it into the pot once that pot reaches room temperature. Give or take somewhere in the ballpark of around 70 degrees. 68 to like 74 degrees, you're fine. So in there, let's say you were doing sugar. Let's go through a quick recipe. Let's say you were using sugar, right? Just granulated sugar. You don't need powdered sugar. See, that's another reason why I don't use the measuring cups. Because powdered sugar takes up more volume than granulated sugar. So that's why I just weigh it out. If you weigh it out, you can't go wrong. You could use powdered sugar, just weigh out. Remember, it's 50% of the water. So if you had 1,000 grams of water, you're going to use 500 grams of sugar. And then you would have 250 grams of lemon juice. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Different recipe using allulose or allulose and monk fruit. Let's say you had 1,000 grams of water. You're going to have, remember, 400 grams of allulose. You need a little bit less because this stuff is pretty strong in terms of sweetness. And then you're still going to use the same amount of lemon juice, 250 grams of lemon juice. Let's say you want to go nuts and you do want to use like orange juice. If you have freshly squozen, right, this is 100% orange juice. If there's no sugar in here, right? Let's look on the back. For what you're looking for is added sugar. See how it says total sugars, right? What you're looking for is added sugar. There is no, as far as I can tell here, there's no added sugar, right? You got carbohydrates, dietary fiber, total sugars, 21, protein 2. It doesn't look like there are any added sugar. So as long as there's no added sugar, you would use 250 grams of this if you want to make like an orange flavored granita. Let's say you want to do a different flavor. Anyway, you get the idea. You just want the juice to be as pure as it can be without any extra added sugar. Okay, so you've mixed up your mix, right? It's in there. It's kind of, stir it, make sure it's all mixed. Now here comes the most painful part of all is transfer this to a sealable container with the lid. You want to put it in the fridge for at least 8 to 12 hours, basically overnight. Or if you made this in the morning, you would let it go till nighttime. And then you're ready to make your ice cream for dinner or whatever, your granita for dinner. But you need to let it sit in the fridge for 8 to 12 hours. The reason why you do that is there's little chemical, molecular reactions, bonds that are being formed that need to happen over the length of time. So you do not want to rush this process. So your liquid mixture basically goes into the fridge. Give or take your fridge. Normal fridges are set between, let's say, 36 and 40 degrees. That's totally fine. 38 degrees for me is the optimal, but 8 to 12 hours. I like to lean towards the size of 12 hours. So 12 hours later, I pull my liquid mixture out of the fridge. Now we're at this point, right? I did put a link down below for a similar old school ice cream maker like this. Ice cream maker, gelato maker, you get the idea. There are so many brands out there. There's the kind that you freeze the container overnight in the freezer. You take it out and use it. My problem with those is, what if I want to make more than, than 2 quarts or 1.5 quart, right? What if I want to make 4 quarts? I got a big holiday coming up or something, or a party or somebody, you know, I just want to make enough for like a month or a week or whatever. I like this better because you can make a batch. This is a 4 quart size. You can put more ice in, let the motor chill out for a little bit, and then make another batch. But the way this machine works, if you're curious, and like I said, I did put a link down below in the description to this one, if not this one, something similar. You know, the colors of the buckets change. Sometimes they're wood, sometimes they're plastic, whatever it is. But the way this works is you want to put down about 3 inches of ice, like pour your juice in there, right? This is your dasher. Your dasher basically stays still, and the motor is turning the bucket. So the bucket turns and this stays still. And that's what actually scrapes the sides of the frozen juice that's in there to then turn it into your granita or your gelato or your ice cream. You get the idea. But basically, once you put your juice in here, you put your handy dandy lid on. This whole thing goes into here. Your motor goes on top of it. I'll have to show you this in another video. And then what you do is around the sides of this, right? So around the sides on the inside, you put about 3 inches of ice, and then you put one layer, like one thin layer of rock salt, right? Ice cream salt. This stuff's pretty cheap. It's about $2 for 4 pounds. So do the math, it comes out to around like 50 cents a pound. But you don't need too much of this. You just need a very thin layer. We're talking like an eighth of an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch over that 3 inches of ice, and then just repeat layers until you get to your ice fill line, which should be right there. So you want to fill up your ice till you get to about right there. You don't want to go over, because if you fill this thing up with too much ice and too much salt, what might happen is the salt and the ice might penetrate into here and then ruin your granita. So basically, this acts as your fill line to fill up your granita mix, right? Your liquid granita mix, but it also acts as the same line. See, there's a hole here letting you know that you've gone too far for your ice as well. So it's okay if there's a little gap up here where there's no ice touching, totally fine. But to recap that, your mixture that you had in the fridge for 8 to 12 hours comes out, it goes into here. So it's already cold, right? When it goes in here, you're helping to speed up that chilling, freezing process. So your mix goes in here, your dasher goes in here, which basically looks like a spatula. This goes in here, your lid goes on top, right? This whole container goes into here, your motor goes on top of that, and then basically you fill around it with 3 inches of ice. It could be crushed, it could be cubed, it could be shaved, it really makes no difference. Crushed ice is the best, or chipped ice, because it'll have more surface area to make contact with the container. Then you put about an eighth of an inch to about a quarter of an inch, like just a little tiny thin layer of the rock salt, and then repeat the process. You put another 3 inches of ice, another eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch of rock salt, and just keep doing that until you hit about this point, which corresponds to this point. So this line here and this line here, once this is inside the container, they should line up. And then basically plug in your machine and let it go. I let mine go for somewhere in the ballpark of like, when it's full, I mean, we're talking like a full, you made 1.75 liters of mix. That equates to about 1.75 quarts, give or take. When you do the math, it's somewhere around there. Let's say just shy of 2 quarts or whatever. Usually about a half an hour is enough time to chill this to where it's a consistency of soft serve ice cream or like frozen yogurt when it comes out of the machine. That's basically what you want. Once you get to that point, open it up after a half an hour and just check it and see where you're at. If it's still looks like it could go a little bit more, go to 40 minutes maybe. But usually around a half an hour is about right. At that point, what you want to do is you want to pop the motor off, take this container out. A lot of people make the mistake of leaving the container in there. Again, you turn your bucket the wrong way and salt water could go inside of your mix. So just take it out entirely. Take the lid off, take the dasher out, and then basically what you want to do is you want to scoop this or pour this into your ice cream containers. You don't need these. I personally just use these because I think they've got like a non-slip surface on the inside. They just hold the granita or the gelato or the ice cream in there perfect. You could use any container you want. You could use even like a bowl with cellophane wrap on top. Makes no difference. This is kind of better at preventing like hard ice crystals from forming on the surface. Some people do the parchment paper thing or the wax paper thing. Have you seen how expensive parchment paper is these days? Or wax paper? I feel like I don't need it. You know, right now we're getting to that melty point. It's time to put this back in the freezer. But I feel like you don't need it. With this bulky kind of container, or even like the 1 quart tub size, I feel like you really don't need the parchment paper or the wax paper or whatever. Just throw it in there, stick this whole thing in the freezer for at least 2 to 3 hours, and then you'll have your beautiful spoonable, scoopable, you know, granita, gelato, you name it. And get yourself a good scooper too. This is like a cheaper one that I have, but I put one down below in the description. I put a link to the gelato ice cream maker. I put a link to the Allulose if you want to see what I found that was the best bang for the buck. I'll put a link to the water filter if you want that down there, this food scale. I'll also put a link to the other 2 ice cream makers that are just astronomically, you get what you pay for. One's around $400, $500 that does everything for you. You don't need ice. You just plug it in and go. There's another one that's like the industrial strength version of this one, more heavy duty. If you want to make 6 quarts, one part of the dasher spins this way, the blades spin this way, the other thing spins the other way. It's just overly engineered. But if you feel like you're going to be making batches of, you have a softball team that you need to feed like every week, and you're going to be making batches of this, maybe the industrial strength, $600, $650 one is the right one for you. You'll have to make up your own mind. Like I said, I'm just trying to give you as much information as possible to make a better informed decision. Highest quality products we can find at the lowest possible prices. Best bang for the buck. That's what this channel is all about. Anyways, this video is getting way too long. There's another shot for you of everything that we talked about today. If you have any questions, put them down in the comment section. By the way, keynote here, I do not use agar-agar or guar gum or xanthan gum. I don't use any of that stuff. I don't know what the heck that stuff is. I haven't seen any long-term effects or testing on it. This is simple. Water, sugar, juice. Water, allulose, juice. It's that simple. It's 3 ingredients, right? It's the process of making it. It's the freezing process of freezing it is what determines how smooth this mixture is. And you may need to experiment, try less sugar. Like if your gelato is looking like this and it's starting to get really watery and runny and it will not freeze, that might be a sign that you have too much sugar or too much sweetener, or you just left it out too long like I did. See, now it's all getting all melted. I need to refreeze this soon. But if you're too hard, let's say you go to scoop it and it's too hard, you may need to add more sugar. Like try 50 grams more next time. What you could do if it's too rock solid, like too rock hard, what you could do is let it melt, let it thaw out, put it in like some kind of container, some other container that you can mix in. And what you can do is you can mix like 50 grams of sugar with maybe like 25 grams of water to make like a really thick syrup. Let that just mix together well and blend well, and add that back to your mix, and then throw it back in the freezer or the freezing machine, the actual ice cream or gelato maker machine, and redo it again and see how that comes out. I think most people, even if it is rock solid, they'll eat it anyway and just deal with it and then just start fresh from the beginning. So take notes of your recipe. Take notes of like how much water you used and what kind of water you used and what kind of sugar you used, whether it was the allulose or the sugar or whatever. Make your notes. If it's too hard, add more sweetener. If it's not hard enough, take out some sweetener. That's usually a good determination of how hard or soft the final batch will come out to be. But that velvety smoothness, those really, really super fine bits of frozen ice in there, the smaller the ice, the smoother it's going to be. And the way you do that is by this process and also by this process of your freezing apparatus. Anyways, Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button down there below, and I will catch you all on the next exciting video.